It was not a sport, but an expensive, bloody performance with one actor in the title role. But the wildest thing is his megalomania. He ordered Rome to be renamed. Now the capital of the world was called Colonia Lucia Annia Commodiana, the colony of Lucius Annius Commodiana. He renamed all the months of the year into his titles, Lucius, Aelius, Aurelius, Commodus. And he declared himself the living embodiment of Hercules. Statues all over Rome were redesigned. Now Hercules had the face of an emperor. He appeared in public in a lion's skin and with a club. The treasury of the empire, which his father had been saving up for decades, was spent on these crazy games and on gifts to the Praetorian Guard to protect him. From whom? From everyone. Conspiracies followed one after another. And Commodus, paranoid and violent, reacted to them with pure slaughter. He executed not only the conspirators, but also their families, friends, and even servants. Rome smelled of fear. And he did not die in the arena, as in the magnificent Hollywood finale. Everything was more banal and dirty. He was killed as a result of a palace conspiracy. First, his mistress Marcia tried to poison him. But the poison didn't work properly. Commodus just threw up. Then, in a panic, they sent a wrestling athlete named Narcissus to him. He strangled the Emperor of Rome in the bathroom. On the day when Commodus planned to enter the arena in consular clothes to solemnly slaughter several senators from there, his body was dragged out by a hook, like an animal carcass, and dumped into the Tiber. The Senate ordered his name to be erased from all buildings, and the statues of Hercules Commodus to be melted down. They called him an enemy of the fatherland. That's the whole story. No noble Maximus avenging his family. There is only a spoiled, dangerous boy who got his hands on the whole world and broke it like a toy to laugh at the pieces. You know, I watched Ridley Scott's Gladiator again yesterday. Epic, isn't it? A golden shower of confetti, the crowd roars, "Free him," and Commodus, that eternal brat in a toga, pretends to be a villain. And every time the hero Maximus drops his sword in the sand, I get goosebumps. But then I got into the sources. And do you know what I learned? The real story was much weirder, dirtier, and at times more tragic. And the Commodus in it is not a cartoon villain, but a real, living catastrophe. Imagine Rome, 180 AD. Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher on the throne, the sage, is dying. His son, Lucius Aelius Aurelius Commodus, ascends the throne at the age of 19. He grew up in his father's military campaigns on the Danube border. But unlike his stoic father, he wasn't interested in running an empire, but in two things: gladiatorial combat and feeling like the embodiment of Hercules. Literally. That's where we'll start. In the movie, he kills his father. In life, everything is more complicated. Marcus Aurelius may have died of the plague. But he definitely made a fatal mistake. He made Commodus co-ruler at the age of 15, trying to ensure a peaceful transition of power. He dreamed of a philosopher's son. But he raised me, a narcissist with terrible power. And this guy decides that being an emperor is boring. Senate meetings, taxes, decrees. Ooh. It's much more fun to enter the arena. And he went out. Not like in the movies, secretly, in a mask. But it's open. The Emperor of Rome, first among equals, became a professional gladiator. Imagine this absurdity. Senators, these grey-haired, arrogant aristocrats, were obliged to sit in the front rows and applaud their master, who was beating slaves and prisoners of war with a sword. He fought 735 times. And he always won. Sure. Who would dare to lay a hand on the emperor? His opponents were armed with wooden swords, while he was armed with real steel swords. Reality is often just a very bad and very expensive farce. But damn it, that doesn't make watching Gladiator any less desirable. It's just that now I understand that sometimes a beautiful myth is exactly what we need. In order not to see how dark, lonely, and funny that man in lion skin really was. Once he defeated an elephant by simply stepping on the head of a lying animal. And the Senate? The senators, these descendants of great families, were forced to sit in the front row and applaud this clown in the imperial toga. One historian writes that Commodus could approach the ranks of senators and brandish the severed head of an ostrich, ostentatiously looking at them. They say, "Your turn may be next." A joke? A threat? Both. It was a theater of humiliation. He hated the old elite, as he hated everything that reminded him of his father's world of duty. His vanity knew no bounds. He renamed Rome. Now the Eternal City was called Colonia Commodiana, the colony of Commodiana. All 12 months of the year received new names derived from his titles: Lucius, Aelius, Aurelius, Commodus, the fleet, the legions. Even the Roman people themselves were officially called Commodian. He ordered the removal of the heads from the colossal statues of the god Hercules throughout Rome and replaced them with his own features. He imagined himself to be the new founder of Rome, a deity during his lifetime. And what about the empire? While the emperor was playing Gladiator, control was concentrated in the hands of his favorites. At first, it was the Praetorian prefect Tygidius Perennis, who, according to rumors, condoned the follies of Commodus in order to rule unchallenged himself. Then there was the freedman Cleander, who literally auctioned off government posts. The treasury, which had been carefully hoarded by his predecessors, was being emptied at an incredible rate, for gigantic games, for gifts to the Praetorian Guard, so that they would remain faithful, for the erection of countless statues to himself. The conspiracies, of course, followed one another. And Commodus, who became paranoid, responded to them not with political calculation, but with animal terror. Executions became widespread and theatrical. He executed not only the conspirators, but also their families, friends, and even casual acquaintances. Fear reigned in Rome. And the more everyone was afraid of him, the more he probably felt lonely, and the deeper he plunged into his fantasy arena, the only place where he was loved and where he always won. The end did not come in the arena, not in a heroic duel like Ridley Scott's. It came about as a result of a conspiracy by those whom he considered to be his closest associates. His mistress Marcia, Praetorian prefect Leto, and his chamberlain Eclectus. Realizing that the emperor had completely lost his mind, there were rumors that on New Year's Eve, which he renamed in his honor, he planned to enter the arena in the clothes of a consul and publicly stab several prominent senators. Decided to act. First, Marcia served him poisoned wine. But Commodus, who possessed the iron health of an athlete, only vomited heavily. The poison did not work properly. The killers panicked. If he recovers, they will suffer a painful death. Then they sent an athlete named Narcissus to him, the one with whom the emperor often trained. Commodus, weakened by the poison, took a bath to recover. And so Narcissus entered this bathroom. And he strangled the Roman Hercules, the emperor, the gladiator, the god in his own imagination. It was December 31st, 192. Commodus' body, disgraced and disfigured, was dragged out of the palace by a hook, like an animal carcass, and dumped into the Tiber. The Senate, trembling with fear during his lifetime, immediately declared him an enemy of the fatherland, hostis publicus. He ordered his name to be erased from all public buildings and his countless statues to be demolished. The curse of memory. Trying to erase it is like a nightmare. That's the real story. Not an epic duel of good and evil, but the slow, painful descent into madness of a terribly lonely man crushed by the weight of a crown he never wanted. Commodus' gladiatorial games are not a show of strength. It's a cry for help. It's an escape. The most expensive escape in history, paid for with the gold of an entire empire. And the movie? The movie is beautiful. He gave us something that wasn't there in reality, a catharsis. Justice. A real hero. Sometimes we need such myths. To believe for at least a couple of hours that there is a place for heroism in this chaotic and unfair world, and that tyrants still fall at the hands of noble warriors, and not at the hands of their own massage therapist in the bathroom. But behind this beautiful tale there is always another, more complex and disturbing truth. And knowing her is like having access to the backstage of a great play. It can be dirty, ugly, and smell of sweat and fear. But that's where you realize that the scariest thing in history isn't monsters. These are ordinary people who once woke up in the skin of the gods and couldn't handle it.